that to some extent, because I know that feminism has very much been at the forefront of inviting in this sort of open borders world, which is an absolute nightmare and a travesty. So I do, to some extent, sympathise, I would say. I understand why a lot of men have found themselves disappointed, angry, and maybe feel that women have been very disloyal to them. And so I suppose in many ways, I do get some men say, why are you having a channel? You should be breeding. I mean, I guess you can do 3 things at once, right? But on the other hand, I think, well, if the general sentiment with a lot of national, and it does actually come from more right-wing men, I'd say, is well, you know, this is the world you wanted, therefore don't look to us to help you women out when you see all these invaders coming in. I guess I sort of thought, well, maybe it is just up to women to do something and try and reverse the mess they've made. It's a very confusing.
Well, look, it always depends on how you look at it. You know, I've gotten the angry messages too that the men are the protectors and we allowed this because we didn't protect and we didn't do our duty. And you can always kind of freeze a point in history or just cherry pick one part of the story and say, okay, that's the sole reason, not look at the holistic relationship of everything and therefore lay it at this or that group's feet. It goes back to what Jason just said. It's just a way to divide us. I know people out there are angry, and I certainly don't think that every single person who writes these kind of nasty messages is a saboteur and is a plant. I mean, there are genuinely people in our spheres that do feel this way, and that needs to be addressed. And we try to be a kind of influence that slowly and surely brings people to a more balanced perspective. You know, we're hoping to do that here. I understand that people have a lot of pain, and that's all right. But anything, any kind of movement or whatever you want to call it, any kind of when there's a social setting, there you will get these tropes that kind of form. And it's exaggerated even more so in this day and age of social media. And I see it all the time. And it's something we have to be out on the lookout for. And just cookie cutter responses. And I just cut people off now to say, I'm going to say this, and now you're going to call me a cuck or a white knight because that's your cookie cutter response. That's your paint by numbers response. Congratulations. You've let Twitter do your thinking for you. No, not everyone is designed to take a step back and always be looking at every angle. You know, maybe we're up here doing this because we're more those types of people. That's all right. Everyone has a role to play. You know, I'm not saying one is even better than the other. But you need this kind of ecosystem of different personality types and strengths to make the whole thing work. But we do need to make sure that the peanut gallery doesn't take over, because a lot of this has been, even if the people who are saying these things aren't subverters themselves, they're being led by subversive forces. You mentioned feminism. Feminism was introduced by, as far as we know, most of the evidence shows, an outside group, and it was under an umbrella of more anti-white sentiment. As Jason said, I had someone who does a lot of research on this tell me that you look at feminist classes and they lament the fact that you look at female voting patterns and most of the women voted the way their husbands still did after women got the vote, and that some of it could be more laid at the feet of people who were enfranchised, who didn't have as much skin in the game, who didn't own property, the lower classes getting votes. So, you know, because we see all of these videos made, well, once feminism started, then, you know, inevitably they vote in social programs and it goes down. And I mean, there's something, I'm not saying there's not something to investigate there, but there's always a little bit more to the story. And that's what I mean about these cookie cutter paint by numbers kinds of approaches to all of these things. And there's just anger, there's just projection, there's just pure personal projection. You know, for someone to go out of their way to inbox somebody who's getting up and just, you studied literature and philosophy and you're sharing, that doesn't mean that you can go have 10 kids. Doing a YouTube video once or twice a week and doing some live streams doesn't preclude you from that.
Of course, no.
It's ridiculous.
It's called, in Going Free, we call that virtue trapping. They want to say, you've got to do this one thing that you consider virtuous and nothing else. And they want to do that because they want to undermine your effort to serve white well-being. Women have, and men as well, have done a great many things at a single time. I know I'm doing a great many things at one time, juggling many balls at one time. But yeah, this idea that all the women, this is what I made a video about last year, wasn't it, Jared? Where I talked about virtue trapping. In fact, I made that up while I was driving the car talking about the subject. And that is, it's used for men as well. That, you should only be doing X, Y, or Z. You can't be doing anything else. And the intent of the person is to undermine you and handicap you, to make you unable to perform any of these other jobs, when there is absolutely no reason you can't do these other things. There's been a great many wonderful women who have contributed in different ways to our people, our culture, our history. They have, some of those have had children, some of those had children first and then did that, like Phyllis Schlafly, which will build a statue to the sky for her once we recapture our destiny. There have been many marvelous contributions. Some women are going to be incapable of having children. Some women are going to be incapable of keeping a man around. They are just witches, and they can serve other ways. So this idea that we're going to, pigeonhole folks and that they got to stay focused on only one thing is idiotic, especially when the argument that is made when it comes to this virtue trapping, particularly when it comes to producing children. Every white woman in the white positive sphere, no matter what sphere it is inside the totality of the white positive sphere, could have 100 babies, and it wouldn't come anywhere close to offsetting the production of non-white babies streaming in from around the world. So it is the ideas, ruminations of fools, and also of anti-white saboteurs, and we should not tolerate such people. Now, we're not doing, as Jared's pointing out, this is not the conservative movement. We feel no need to white knight or to bow down to women. All women are not good. Women are not born with angels' wings, and that's how conservatives, that's how the patriots, that's how they act and they behave. And if a woman says something or a tear streams down her face, a bunch of men will jump on the guy that's nearest to her and beat him to a bloody pulp. That won't happen here, because we know the reality that there are women who are angels and there are women who are demons, just like there are men who are angels and there are men who are demons. We've seen, and we're just going to bring this reality with us, because that is what Kipping, Keep It Promethean, and we talked about that last week.
Oh, I like that. Kipping.
Yeah. This is about reason, logic, and evidence in all things. That's where it begins, in decision-making and interpretation. And one of the things that we interpret when we look out at the world is that women are absolutely capable of just as much savagery, just as much brutality, just as much evil as any man. And we undermine our women, we undermine our families, we undermine our men, we undermine our children when we try to attribute this angelic status to them simply because they have a certain genitalia and are apt to cry if they get upset. I mean, this is stupid. So there are good women and there are bad women. We're going to acknowledge them for what they are. We're not going to be the conservatives, and we are absolutely not going to allow any virtue trapping. So anybody in the white positive sphere, certainly serving white well-being, who attempts to virtue trap our women, we're going to call them out, because that is a form of roadblocking. That is a form of preventing us from reaching our people with this curative contagion. Because let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, Sarah might not have children. Now, maybe she'll never have children. Maybe she'll have 10 children. But right now, she's able to make videos. Right now, others out there are able to make videos. And a woman is going to be inclined to listen to another woman, more so than some guy like me up here who sometimes gets quite angry in front of the microphone and the camera. They're going to be apt to listen, and they're going to give heed to what she is saying. So if one of our women can reach 1,000, 10,000, 110, a million, whatever it is of our women, those are victories. Each and every one of them are victories. So no roadblocking, and therefore no virtue trapping. I pass it back. Sarah, you probably have something to say to that, and then we'll get back to Jared with his great line of questioning.
Well, one thing I would say is, if there's any evidence of that, it would be that, I feel a lot of confidence listening to someone like Laura Towler, who, obviously a young woman who has, so far as I can tell, has done so much already, far more than a lot of the men who would complain that women shouldn't be making videos. And so I can only really give my own experience, and that I feel a lot of confidence watching and listening to her. Probably would not be half so outspoken if I didn't have that sort of initial little kick from another woman. So, yeah, I suppose we're all just trying the best we can, aren't we? I do understand why a lot of men are angry at women. And so, I mean, maybe they just need to hear that, and to hear a woman to say, well, I recognise that, and we have been treated poorly. Hopefully we can start to... Another thing I would say is, though, don't worry, I never underestimate how much a woman loves for the white knight. I wouldn't worry about that, boys. Women don't mean that at all.
No.
Yeah. But you make some very good points, Jason, of course.
I missed that. Don't underestimate. What about a white knight?
How much a woman likes a white knight. It's not an insult.
We'll see.
Okay.
Sometimes what they say and what they respond to are different.
Oh, that's women.
We do appreciate your support, and it does mean a lot. What you said earlier about sometimes men just do need to hear that sympathetic voice from a woman, like what you were saying. That you guys have been through a lot, and to have that support sometimes means the world. We certainly do appreciate it.
Oh, that's good.
So